32 ticks following, so they are swallowing. Monkey is swallowing. Snake self swallowing. Next, a swallow too will fly and come and swallow. You're ever swallow in a hollow gallow, making a whole lot of halabaloo. Jalekalu, we know say you chop the money some, so give me the loot. Do you really want a revolution or just your turn? Cause if you really want a revolution, all this for band. Or you go shut out the rig the system.
When I take a look at our society, I see that a lot of people did not have knowledge of their own culture. They prefer to read a Bible, to take a sample from Quran. All this gave me an inspiration to take a look into how we can educate. It is important to know and understand true nature of Yoruba deities. We are all descendants of Orisha. We came through all these Orisha deities. During the 3-day ceremony that called Esentaye, they used to know which Orisha that we all came through from generation to generation. African people, especially Yoruba people, we are descendants of all these Orisha. It is in our blood, and we cannot do away with it. It is very important for every one of us to know the nature of Orisha that it came from, and we will know how to correct our mistake and to achieve our goal, to give us peace of mind each time that we are combat with the problem of life. All Orisha that we have in Yorubaland are the founder of the city or town. They had established all the activities, culture that we are playing in each town from time to time. And the king, the monarch of each town, also has to respect and know how to make an homage and communicate with them. If there's a problem, if anything arises, they know what to do so that the town will be in peace. So it is very important for everyone to know the nature of Orisha that we are born with. For example, in Oshogbo, we used to have Oshun, and Shango used to have to become prominent at Ede, and Egungun used to be prominent Orisha at Iwo and some other town. There's no town that has Egungun and Obatala, but each town has their own prominent one that they protect the town and they give maximum protection to all individuals, and we must respect them. Why the book on Yoruba Deities is so important? In the beginning, we take a look into earlier researcher, scholar, missionary people that used to have an access to the book, to write books. If we take a look into their works, we discover that a lot of them do not have interest in African traditional deities. The way they used to describe Orisha and our culture is not so good. They used to call Shango god of thunder, Ifa Oreku, Eshu Elegbara devil, and so on like that. So it is important for Africans themselves to correct all the mistake. The missionary people, what is in their mind is to take a lot of people back to their midst. They converted all the son and daughter of Orisha people to their mission. So they do not want us to know the authentic information about our Orisha. All what they are interested is to convert people to come to the missionary. That is what is going on. That is why it is important for Africans themselves to research and they bring out authentic information to disseminate it so that we know the true African history about our Orisha. It is important to have books, different books on the deity, because it serves a purpose of information. I did a program Obatala in praise, 1 hour program during my visit to the United States. I did it as a researcher into book of Obatala that I used to write in those days. So the documentary recorded in a video. One of my students of Ifa took the video to the correction department in the US. I got a letter from correction department to give them permission to broadcast my documentary on adventure of Obatala in a prison. At first I was so scared that how did they get to know me from the prison department? But my people give me assurance that I should not get worried, that there's nothing wrong with it. So what I'm trying to say is that the documentary, 1 hour documentary I did on Obatala in praise, it changed a lot of people in the correction department. Some of them, when they came out, they write letter to me, they say they want to be a follower of Obatala, they want to become an Ifa priest, they want to study, they want to abandon all their wrongdoing. Likewise, books also serve the same purpose. It will change the people on the knowledge that they seek for. It give it to them. All this information that has been passing around, the authentic book will correct it. Mm-hmm. My contribution to the recent effort that people are writing book about Yoruba Orisha, I was glad, I was so happy to be invited among the people to give information, to help. Yoruba used to have an adage, Ojo ni ayo igbin. It is rain that make the snail happy. Ojo ni ayo igbin. And that is what I like to do. That is what makes me happy. It gives me joy. I gave all the books that I wrote to the committee that write the book so that it will serve as a source where they can get information. And I'm glad at any time they ask me what it is, they want to know, I'm happy that I was among the contributor to that program.
Welcome to Ake Arts and Book Festival 2020 online. My name is Abdulkareem Baba Aminu, and I'll be moderating a panel discussion with Peju Akande, Toni Kan, and Araba Ifayemi Elebuibon, Katharina Fink, and Friederike Moschel. I'm just going to jump right in and start asking the questions. I'll go straight to Friederike. Good to see you, Friederike. Well, what's the origin story of this unique book on Yoruba deities?
Well, about 1.5 years ago, we were at a cultural event in Lagos at our good friend's home, Ugoma Adegoke. And after the event, we were sitting together with some artists and intellectuals. And while discussing the event, we ended up in a way recognizing and regretting that a lot of Nigerians don't really know about their own cultural traditions anymore. I mean, you still find them in name-giving ceremonies, weddings, funerals, which are in a way rooted in these old beliefs. But in a whole, a lot of these knowledge is lost in the fields of architecture, education, medicine, crafts. The reasons are many. I mean, it's the far-reaching effects of the slave trade, colonialism, the influence of the new religions coming in, and the emulation of a so-called modern urban lifestyle. And a lot of these old beliefs have been regarded as backward, just satanic sometimes and primitive. So this development, in a way, lead to a loss of memory. And so we're all thinking, this is really a pity, and especially the young generation should know more about their roots. Because, I mean, if you don't know where you come from, how do you plan to move forward? And if you don't know your own roots, your cultural heritage, how do you define yourself? So these were actually the questions we asked ourselves. And then Toni Kan immediately said, wow, I would like to join this project. And then Peju and German joined as well. And with Iwalewa House, we found a great partner in Germany. Yeah. And within some weeks, the project was born and we started.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. The next question is going to be for Peju. Hi, Peju.
Hello.
Hi. I know you've researched, and researched and written and researched, tons of writing and research, yeah, for this book. What's the journey been like? I mean,
Thank you. The journey has been very, very exciting. And you said research. Yes, we went into libraries. We got books. We spoke to people, but most of the knowledge we got was from speaking with the likes of Araba Elebuibon, with Chivo Yelami, with a number of people that we had a workshop with. So we got to learn a lot. We got to understand that the gods we have demonized are not the demons we think they are. They are gods that we should learn about. They are gods that are actually very interesting characters. They are gods that we should teach our children about. So the journey has been very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you.
Toni, you're up next. Why do you think there's a growing appeal these days for stories like that of the Orishas?
I think that people are beginning to hark back to their origins. You can look at Wakanda, Black Panther. For years we've been fed with superheroes and gods in graphic novels, and suddenly people are beginning to realize that we have those too in Africa. For me, I mean, why I found the project interesting from day one was because there had been something I'd seen on Twitter about issues, not Satan, and I thought it was kind of interesting that people were beginning to try to reappropriate the narrative from the Christian perspective to a more cultural and Yoruba perspective, because the issue is not really Satan; it was just some kind of misnaming, and he got stuck in that dark portion of things. So I think that people are beginning to try to understand where they've come from in order to better appreciate where they're going to, and also their future. So in that sense, yes, I think that there's that happening, and I think there's some kind of cultural reappropriation going on, some kind of cultural renaissance, if you will. I think that this book helps add to that conversation. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Tony. Then now, Katharina. Hi.
Hi, everyone. So good to see you all again.
Awesome. For you, I'm just wondering, that my question is, as a German publisher putting together a book written in Nigeria, how did the creative team really come about? How did they gel, into the team that's creating this exciting new book?
Yeah, thanks for this question. I think it's a very important one. We are Iwa Leva Books, so we owe a lot to Yoruba culture and to Oshogbo in particular. So for us, it wasn't that far, kind of, because we're really trying to live up with the publications we do on art and discourse. We really try to live character is beauty. So it wasn't far for us. And that whole stance of what you all talked about already, of decolonizing knowledge, of creating accessibility to the richness of cultures all over the world is one thing we're really interested in to do with our publication. So for us, it made complete sense. We're strictly internationalists, so we work all over the place, and also with our 2 offices in Johannesburg in South Africa and in Bayreuth in Germany. So we're like that international component is very logic for us. That's how we always operate and work. So, and that particular team you're speaking of is not hard to gel together, because I think we're driven by a same energy or same desire to know and to communicate knowledge and to make knowledge accessible. That's why I'm really excited about this project, because it communicates something very, very essential and very not culture specific, but something that is very concrete, and it does it in a way that speaks to global youth cultures. So we're also talking to the diaspora here. We're talking to young kids in Cuba, in Brazil, and so on and so on.
Thank you very much, Katharina, for your answer. Yeah, and it goes directly into my next question, which is for Friederike, which is the book appears to have a sort of young adult slant. Yeah, why is that so? And is there a kind of timing to it? Maybe a sort of like, how do I put it now? You're reaching into the current, maybe zeitgeist, so to speak.
Well, I mean, when is the best age to bring knowledge to people? And I think teenagers and young adults are very open. They don't have so many prejudices yet. And so we thought teenagers, young adults between, let's say, 15 and 20 something, they are a perfect target group. They are open-minded. And when I was a teenager, I mean, this was probably the starting point of the whole thing. I do remember there was this series of books in Germany. It was called Who is Who in the Greek pantheon, in the Roman pantheon, in the Germanic pantheon. And it gave very short information on the most important gods and goddesses, etc., etc. So it was very easy, for example, when you went to a museum or so, and you saw a statue of somebody, and you had no idea who this is, and then you could just check in this book and could read about this deity. And I thought it should be a format that is very easy to handle. So no long essays, no scientific approach. So easy to read, that it's also interesting maybe for people who are 40, 50, 60 years old. But it should be written in an entertaining way, not a long, boring text. It should be illustrated in an attractive way. And the earlier young people learn about these this knowledge about their past, their culture, the more careful they maybe deal with certain things like art objects, architecture of old buildings. I mean, we all always complain that in Nigeria a lot of people have no access to, or they don't get any feeling, they are not sensitive when it's about protection of their own heritage. And maybe this book can help a little bit to make people aware of this very rich culture they have. And so, as Katharina also mentioned, it's not just about Nigeria, it's also about young people living in South America or in Europe who just want to learn something about this, and then later can also provide this knowledge to others. So, and also to make sure it doesn't really have a religious component. It's about culture, and you as the more you learn about it, the better it is for you and actually the community that you live in.
Thank you very much, Friederike. My next question is for Peju, and it's about the Orishas, basically. They're these mythical, powerful, figures, in the pantheon of Yoruba deities. And I mean, almost everyone I know who's aware of them has a favorite. I mean, I do. So, Peju, which one's your favorite to, write about or research about? And probably you were surprised to find out some things about that particular deity that you had no idea about before.
It's really hard to say this is a particular favorite, this is not a favorite. But the one goddess I enjoyed researching and finding things about would be Yemoja. Now, Yemoja is, yes, she's an embodiment of womanhood. She's an embodiment of beauty, charm. She's graceful. She's resourceful. She also epitomizes, who a woman is. She's gorgeous. She's got all the assets you would want in a woman, and yet she still thinks this isn't enough. So that's what her story is centered around. She's a woman who is very resourceful, who is very wealthy, who still has, she still has this thing about her body image. She has huge breasts, she has huge hips, she's lovely, she has long hair, and yet she still feels, very self-conscious. So I find her very interesting. I find her very intriguing. She's a goddess that Yorubas would call upon to when there is calamity in the community, when there is an epidemic, for instance, they call upon her and she comes around to cleanse the community. I admire her a lot. Yeah, Yemoja will be my favorite. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, great. I'll save my favorite for later. Thanks, Peju. I'm going to go to Katharina now. I'm just going to ask now, as a publisher and as a person, I mean, you can't separate the two, yeah? No. As a publisher and a person, what was that special appeal, for you about publishing a book about Yoruba gods?
Yes, thank you for that question. You know who my favorite is, and my favorite illustration. But no, I mean there's so many things that have been touched upon that are really making up the appeal of this book. And one is that I really want to place here again is that something as diversity is sacred. That there's a sacredness in our being different, and everybody having little characteristics that can be found in an Orisha or not. And I think this book it can be so empowering to young people. In a conversation we had in the context of another festival with Toni, I remember that you were saying something about Shango and the way Shango's hair will be depicted in the book, and how liberating that can be for young people who might be told by their parents, this is indecent, this is not the way to dress, this is not the way how you should look like. And I think that appeal for me or for us, because Nadine Siegert is with me here, like in everything. The appeal is really to point out to the richness and the sacredness of diversity within that book. And of course, lovely people, the illustration.
Oh, thank you very much. Now, I'm going to jump right back to Toni. Tony, the stories of the Yoruba pantheon are epic, epic. I mean, some of them can just lend themselves to being, cinematic. They're grand, in scale. So for the creative process for this book, how did you employ all your writing skills, the research and everything? Maybe what I want to say is that what's the creative process, like for you bringing out these stories?
Okay, so I mean, I have to take it back. So we had a conversation, then we agreed on doing a project, but then Friederike and Katia, and Peju and I sat down over a few meetings to, define how to proceed. And she did mention the book she had read as a child, and that was for us some kind of template to use. And we're trying to arrive at a book that will be a mix of the academic, in quotes, and also literary, and also graphic novel, and also cinematic, like you said. So we wanted to present something that almost anybody who picked it up, no matter the age, would enjoy. We have to acknowledge Katharina and Katia for the insights they brought in. They even brought in two young people from Germany, a Nigerian and a white, to also lend their own perspective as young adults. So, but after we did that, we went into the writing process proper, and it was basically for us to find a way to create stories that will be dramatic enough for you to read, enjoy, and go to a cocktail party and tell it to somebody, or tell your child a story, or turn it into a movie, if you will. So, but when we started writing, it was a lot of research to be done, because most of these gods came to us through oral tradition. They have been books, but if you look at the books, you can see a clear pattern emerge. Most of the people who wrote the early books were whites. Then the blacks started writing, but you can also see that the blacks have some kind of slants. So either from Ile-Ife, the Ife specific gods will have prominence. If they're from Oshogbo, you will see that slant. So we found that happening. So we have to now. I mean, we bought lots of books, so we could do a composite basically of all these different perspectives. So I mean, it was a very fun thing to do. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I mean, thinking of what you knew and realizing what you didn't know, or what you didn't know and finding out what you knew. So yeah, for me, it was a really really cool way to re-enter the Yoruba cosmology and pantheon again. So yeah, it was quite exciting.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Friederike, hi. The next question is for you. Now, I've observed that there's a kind of, like a culture religion link, that's a bit obvious around the world in various societies. Is that one of the things that informed this project, that sort of like newfound, so to speak, interest, in things of our ancestors? Suddenly the old is new again, and what was uncool is suddenly cool again.
It was very funny for me when a friend told me that while he was doing a tour around a museum in Lagos, that the tour guide passed by some statues, and when the group asked why, she was answering, said, no, this is satanic and this is against our religion, and so she didn't want to deal with it. On the other side, when you go to the Vatican Museum in Rome, directly in the neighborhood of the Pope, you have all this Greek and Roman statues which have nothing to do with Christianity at all. And so therefore, I think it is very important to talk to people and explain them that these religions, these old traditional religions, don't mean that they're against your Christian or Muslim beliefs. These are totally, we don't want to missionize, It's when you look back how religion formed the life of our ancestors, when it was about the legal systems, when it was art, performances in certain religions, which are so important for our nowadays cultures, to tell people it's not you can go to church, you can go to mosque, you can be a very faithful Christian or Muslim, but you can still deal with these old traditions. It's not a contrast, and again, you can only appreciate your past when you know about the circumstances in which your ancestor lived and what their mind systems were. Yeah? If you just say, no, this is nothing I want to deal with, we just forget about it, then there is this huge danger, which we experience in a lot of cultures throughout the world, that this heritage is totally forgotten. And then you cannot explain your identity. You cannot explain the history of your country or your region when you are not aware of it.
Interesting. Thanks, Friederike. Now I'm going to go to Katharina. My question is, are there any maybe like lessons, you've learned from this whole process, or any ideas that have become clearer to you, as the project, progressed?
Thanks, Abdulkareem, for that question, because we learned a lot. First of all, our Yoruba is still very whack, so we start a course again on Wednesday. Shout out to Kola, who's going to take up teaching us again. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just a reminder of how humble we as humans, and I don't say that in a like happy clappy or naive way, but what kind of how humble we should be, looking at the richness of cultural heritage, religious heritage, spiritual heritage around the world. Then that we should trust in process, because there's a story that our dear authors like Peju and Toni and Jaman as well could speak much more about, because we started off with the idea to have 10 stories, but it turned into the number 16, which itself is a story, I think, a story about this project. And for me, it's like trust in process always, because we start with an idea and we might arrive at a different place that we had imagined as a destination. So, and then also how important it is, and this is something we know from decolonial work, from feminist work, and so on, how important it is to read old stories against the grain again. Like for me, or for us, for Nadine and myself, it would be so interesting to continue with this work, and if all of us want, and to see what else could be told with these stories. How could we perhaps see the relations between genders as they are told in the stories? How could we see them differently? Or how could we contextualize the way, for example, a model like marriage is talked about in the text, and so on and so on. So there's so many things that we learned, and we continue to learn. So we are grateful for having been able to do that. And we really can't wait for the day when we all meet in person with a book as an object in our hand, and it's going to be very soon. Thanks.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
No, I absolutely agree what Katharina said, because we already plan for the next year a series of discussions with other experts from Nigeria, maybe also from South America, also on certain topics, because it's exactly what you said. It's not enough just to create a book and print it and then say, okay, let's read it. I think the content is so fascinating, and there are so many aspects that it would be extremely sad just to leave it like this.
Awesome. So I was just going to say, as someone who's been privileged to read the manuscript, yay! I learned a lot, about the deities. I've had a fairly good knowledge of a number of them. Like I said, I even had a favorite from when I was a child and everything. But my goodness, the range, different powers, different, areas they sort of look after. And something I noticed is and I'm sure everyone else too has noticed, the number of female deities, the goddesses, really powerful, really important deities. It just goes to show you that from way back when, these mythologies were created, or these deities were, came about, there's always been a balance, so for me it also brings up, the question of at what point did we lose, that balance. And at the same time, I think it would also show younger readers or people reading today, that, hey, this balance was there before, it could still be here now. So for me, there's so many aspects of the book, so many, it's multidimensional for me. And I think audiences or readers basically would really, really love the book. With that, I'm just going to jump to Toni now. And, my question is, it does seem there's growing appeal, in traditional aspects of life, and Yoruba Orishas, are certainly rising in popularity. I mean, there's an animated movie of Shango somewhere being done. There are mentions of it in graphic novels. Like you rightly called it, like a renaissance of some sort is happening. So yes. Now, why do you think this is so? Do you have an idea or a feeling about, why all these things are unfolding this way right now?
I mean, I can't just put my finger on one thing and say this is what it is. But with the rise of social media and popular culture, people are beginning to. There's some kind of intermingling of cultures. I mean, everybody knows about Thor and his brother, and their father and everybody. So young people have grown up being fed this. My son can tell you about the MCU from beginning to end, all the backstories of all the gods. That's what he's grown up, consuming. I hope that by next year he'll be able to tell you the backstory of all the Yoruba gods too, since he's half Yoruba himself. But that said, you have to begin to understand that as people grow and they get dissatisfied with the present, I think there's always that need to project the future or to take a backward glance. And I think that's where, so one, you have the dystopian futuristic novels, or you have the, return to the past. So I think that people are beginning to question the current reality. And when you have questions, you begin to look at how you got to where you are. And in looking at where we are, or where they are as young Yoruba men and women, they're beginning to see that there are actually people who lived before them, who were courageous, who were powerful, and who have lost their essence because some white person came and said, this is the new God, this is the new religion, and they lost that. There's a lady I follow on Instagram, I think she's called Kini Tuntun or something like that. And I was telling her about this book, and I said to her, I'd like you to come, for the festival, so you can just see what we talk about. She also talked about Yoruba gods, about astrology, how it connects with the Yoruba cosmology. So, and she's a young woman, so I guess in time, more people will begin to also acknowledge that aspect of their lives. Like I said in another conversation, young people come home with cornrows, young men, and their father or mother is like, oh, that's horrible, that's American. It's not. Shango had cornrows, he wore skirts, they all wore earrings, so this is the culture we have. Some of our grandmothers had tattoos. Now they say tattoos are of the devil, but it's not quite true. This is the culture we've lost. So books like this will help us appreciate our culture, reintegrate our cultural heroes and gods into our lives. I'm not saying go and start pouring libation at some shrine, but understand where you've come from. Yeah, understand where you've come from and that you had a rich past. So I think that this will give young people some kind of pride in their culture, and in the tradition of their people. And if that's what we achieve with this book, I'm very happy.
Thanks, Tony. I'm just going to go right to Peju right now. Peju, you can't tell me there was no level of excitement when you were researching and writing the stories of all these powerful goddesses, the female Orishas. I don't want to believe that.
Of course, I was excited. Like I said to you earlier, I grew up in a Muslim home. I became a Christian as an adult, and I thought the Orishas were gods that we spoke about in whispers. We were scared of them. They were not to be mentioned, not in Islam, not in Christianity. Because both religions made us believe they were evil. I remember one time I was quite young. Can't remember. I think I was maybe 13, 14. I saw this worshippers. I think they were Oshun worshippers. They were dressed in white. They were coming from a shrine. They had this fire in a pot, and everybody took off. People around took off. It was in broad daylight. They came out. They were, in their full regalia. They were so proud of their religion. They all came out. But you see, the rest of us, we took off. We were scared. We thought they would simply send fire to us and burn us out. But learning about this, researching the gods and the goddesses, I discovered that the gods they're not to blame. They're not responsible for all of the evil stories that we've heard. Oshun is a beauty. Oshun is benevolent. Oshun is she's the goddess of fertility. Same for Yemoja. She blesses women. And here's the thing. Despite the fact that we all think they are malevolent forces, none of these gods they don't tolerate deceit. They don't tolerate evil people. Ajay would, for instance, not even bless somebody who's deceitful. If you want to do business, if you want Ajay to prosper you, and you're being deceitful, she will not prosper you. She will not come to your store. So, I mean, you find that these were gods and goddesses that help to shape our communities, our society, our culture way back then. And these were these were gods that if you go against their laws, they will strike you. They will strike you down. Unlike in Christianity and Islam, you could do anything you wanted. You could even swear by the Quran or by the Bible, and nothing will happen to you. You go swear by Ifa, and you're on the wrong side. If you don't get so they were like our custodians. They were like our, they guided the community. They guided the society way back then. And there was something. They were they were important. They were gods that you in as much as you respect them, you could also love them, because they displayed so many forms of. For instance, Shango's favorite meal was amala, and what do we call this? Abula. That's his favorite meal. So you see, we've been able to. They have human features, and they also have godlike features. So again, it's something this book is a book I know that our kids would enjoy reading. While I was writing, for instance, I shared my script with my then 17-year-old and 19-year-old. They were like, "Oh, please, when are you going to finish this? Can we read more? Can we see more of what you're doing?" They were excited about it. They talked about it. They spoke to their friends about it. So I see it going beyond what we even plan. I see it going beyond our immediate environment. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Peju. Friederike, I have a question for you. Earlier you mentioned, the books you really liked as a child, the ones about the who's who in the Greek pantheons, who's who in the, and all that. Now I'm curious. When was your first encounter with the Yoruba Orishas, and what was your impression?
Oh, it was quite late because, I mean, as you know, Nigeria has been my first posting in Sub-Sahara Africa. So before I've been mainly to Muslim countries, and I think the first really deep impression was when I was in Oshogbo, and it was right after I arrived in Nigeria, and it was very, very fascinating because I've never been in contact with such a religion before. And I had the feeling that it's quite confusing for me, all this deities and all these rituals. And then also it was for me extremely fascinating to see that it's not an old tradition or religion which is gone. I mean, there are still a lot of people who worship, as Peju said, during our workshop with the experts on Yoruba religion. They also said that it's still quite common that people see themselves as Christians or Muslim, but still they do some rituals or have certain beliefs which are based on the old traditions. So it's very fascinating because it's still there, even if a lot of people ignore it and don't want to have it, but it's still there, and it still has a huge impact, as far as I could see, at people living in the regions of Nigeria where the Yoruba religion was always existing. I mean, this is also another topic for me. It would be great if this book is a kind of starting point for other authors or initiatives to focus on all the other ethnicities, religions in Nigeria. Because, as we all know, Nigeria has manifold cultures and religions, and a lot of them, I think, are even in danger to be completely forgotten. As we mentioned before, the Yoruba traditions have also lived on in Brazil or so, where it still has a huge impact on certain regions in northern Brazil. And so again, it would be great if maybe in 1 or 2 years there will be a book on Igbo religions or all the others.
Thank you, Friederike. I have a question for Toni. It's basically like this. Now, the Orishas, are also grounded in reality, in that it's said that they're historic figures, as well. It's believed that they actually existed, they lived, and then grew to this mythological status. I think. Did that fact sort of make it difficult for you to write out these stories? Did you take creative license, or you went strictly with what's available on ground? So, I just want to see how deep you went. Maybe, yeah.
So I mean, like I said to you, we had series of meetings with Katharina, with Friederike and Katia and Peju and myself, and it was basically for us to, get a handle on how to present the gods. About Leda and the Swan in Greek mythology. The swan was raped by Leda, whatever, and then she gave birth to a child who became a warrior. So, so in the Greek mythology, you call them demigods. So they have the gods and the demigods who are part god, part human beings. But in the case of the Yoruba deities, right, they were the Orishas who came down via that chain from heaven to Ile-Ife, right? Led by Ojuduwa or Batala, depending on who you listen to. So so those ones are called the Irumoles. They are the primordial gods, the ones that came from heaven. But then even as we have that down, that some gods came down from heaven, they also given human essences. So somebody like Urumila is supposed to have come from heaven with the Father, the wisdom, but he's also said to have lived in a particular place as an ascetic wise man. So what we did with the book was to talk about the gods, the origins. So those who had both human and divine essences, we put it down. Those who had someone like Moremi, for instance, Moremi was not an Orisha. She's a deified human being who, because of her sacrifice for the people of Ife, was made a god and began to worship her. Somebody like Oba, somebody like Oya, somebody like Oshun, these were all married to kings. So I mean, it was a process that, thinking about it now, it was good that we're working with Katia and Friederike, and bringing our own ideas, and they bringing their own ideas. So we there was something that I think was Friederike who brought it, that we should talk about the interconnection between the gods. So somebody is somebody's father, somebody married somebody gave birth to somebody. So it kind of creates some kind of family map of all the gods. So they are the Rumoles who came from heaven. Then they are the ones who were deified, and also. So it's a fantastic book to read, because at the point, I mean, you get confused. Was Shango the god the same as Alafin Shango? Who's supposed to be the fourth king of Ile-Ife? So it was just a whole lot of moving bits we had to put together in that small space to make it enjoyable to read, to make it easy to understand, and then to also show you how they are all interconnected. There's a story in the book, which, if you look at it, you can say, oh, so was there homosexuality in the past? Where one of the gods wants to cross the river. I won't say one of the gods, that you can buy the book. Wants to cross the river, and the other god says you can't cross the river. So he turns into a woman and has sex with that god, as payment. So this is a man who has just kind of shapeshifted from a woman to a woman. So there are so many stories like this that happen, and they start wondering. So is Yemoja the mother of Ajay? Is Ajay the sister of this? Is Oba? And it's just a whole, crazy universe of gods, that interconnect on different levels. And I think that's the beauty of the culture and the tradition, and the book itself. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Now, you said crazy, yeah, and this just reminded me of a little anecdote, which I'm privileged, to hear about, in the whole process. And this question is for Peju. I understand that, there was a whole workshop, to set the book up, a whole process. And during that process, where you guys had to decide on the number of gods and goddesses to spotlight in the book, the number 16 came up in a mysterious way, so to speak. So Peju, could you please tell us about that? Just tell us the whole story.
Okay, so like you said before, we initially agreed, we were talking about doing 10 gods. So we said that the people were invited, Araba Ifayemi and the rest of the other invitees. We asked that they should give us a list of their top 10 gods. However, when we began to, and each of them, when they came for the workshop, everybody had their top 10 gods, and we discussed each of these gods accordingly. At the end of the day, we had 16 gods. Now, we weren't processing that immediately. All we knew was that, okay, sure, everybody had top 10, and then, we had these other gods too that we knew we were going to write about. I'm not sure, Tony and I'm not sure, even with Jam, I'm not sure we knew it was 16 at that point. But at the point at which we now began to assign to each writer the number of gods to do, we realized we had 16. Incidentally, 16 is a unique figure in Yoruba. It's the number of Ifa, 16 is Ifa is 16. You know, there are Ifa stories. There are 16. For Oshun is celebrated for 16 days. There are 16 lamps that will be lit when Oshun festival, takes place. So 16 is a very unique number. And one of the things we also noticed is that for each of the gods, just like Tony said earlier, they're all related. There's one god who's related to this one, there's one who's married to this one, there's one whose child is said to be the husband of that one. So it's, and again, like I said, this didn't start from the beginning. We didn't see it from the beginning. It was when we began to do the research, we began to talk to Araba Elebuibon. For instance, I will give you an example. Araba Elebuibon was someone I thought I was going to run away from. When I heard it was the high priest of Ifa, I told myself I was going to give him serious distance. Because I thought he was fetish, he was coming and then he was going to speak and then we'll all be dumb and we won't know what we're doing. But, amazingly, he's somebody I've been calling, he's somebody I've been talking to, he's somebody I, send voice notes to, he's somebody I, ask about details of things that we had at the workshop. So it's really a beautiful thing. Everything is just falling in place. Everything is, the moving parts are falling into place. Thank you.
Thanks, Peju. Then this question is for Toni again. Now, the interactions, between all the gods, the goddesses, this complex, tree you sort of described. How dramatic would you say they are? And were you tempted to go down the route of the drama when you were writing? Were there any temptations like that?
So let me tell you the story of Ogun, Shango, and Oya. She had been married to one god, I won't say which, and then while that god was away doing what he does, the other god sees her and marries her, and then of course, when he saw her, Eshu was there to have said, "Oh, guy, don't do this. She's married to this guy." But if she just says, "I can see the love in their eyes, let me just encourage this." Then once they've, come together, in love, he takes off and tells that God, "Oh, somebody has stolen your wife," and that one comes back and he tries to reprimand his wife, and the wife, just splits into 7 essences, like, dude, you can't mess with me, man. I mean, I have my own power too, So then he now leaves and goes to fight the other god, which is, for me, I mean, I was reading a novel today about domestic violence, and I thought, I mean, if men suspect that their wife is cheating, go and beat the man. Don't beat your wife. Go and beat the man outside, because that's what the god did. He left his wife and went and fought that guy for 7 days. I mean, can you imagine a movie where 2 gods fight for, like Achilles? I mean, they fight they hard. So they fought for 7 days until the fighting and the screaming was so loud that it got to heaven. And Olodumare said, "Guys, you guys have to come to heaven and meet me here. And whoever gets to heaven first gets the woman." And they took up. And so you can just see the drama of just a love triangle. It can give you a full novel, right? Just a man losing his wife to another man and trying to get her back. So yeah, the drama in this story, some of them are just crazy. For instance, I mean, how did we come to have people with hunchbacks, disabled people, right? It explains it. So this is a book that, kind of defines our world, helps us create some balance, and also, ensures order. So if you lie, some god is there to strike you dead. If you take somebody's money, and that god is there to make sure you don't enjoy it. So it was about defining who we are, creating a balance, and then restoring order in society.
Yeah.
And the drama is just crazy. And I mean, after reading this book, I'm sure the next time you see palm wine, you run away.
Okay, good. Looking forward to reading that bit then. Yeah, so my last question, the final question, I mean, as fantastic as it's been talking to all of you about this wonderful project, it's for all of you. It goes, would a younger you pick up the book? And if you do, why would you pick up the book? Let's start with Friederike.
I would definitely buy it. Because, as Toni said, it's always fascinating how all these deities in the past were like a normal family who's fighting, who's cheating, who is, having very good positive and also negative sides. And this makes it so human that you can see yourself. And of course, you have always the virtues. You would like to be similar, but you also see that there are all these differences. And this is very interesting. It's very adventurous, and I would definitely buy it.
Okay, thank you, Friederike. Toni, you're up next.
Oh, I mean, the younger me spent his time reading books, So this is a book I'll definitely want to read, I mean, and it got all the elements of a good story. You learn something, you enjoy a good story, and then you see some good art.
Katharina, you're next.
Yes. Of course, I would love to have that book. First of all, because it would help me understand as well the pop culture videos I love so much, and it would give me some reference. And I also want to ask you something, but I just leave it like that. Also because I want to see these beautiful illustrations and understand why I find some people so beautiful, because they resemble a god.
Thank you very much, Katharina. And last but not the least, Peju.
Thank you. A younger me will pick it up because, and this is not casting aspersions on anyone. I would love to see a movie industry, a Nollywood, portray our gods in the positive light. I would like to see Shango actually stand up for something good, Ogun stand for something good, instead of being malevolent forces. Yes, I would pick it up and hope that the industry will do something about it. The movie industry will do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peju. Okay, Toni, I shudder to ask, but
so for the past 1 hour, you've been holding court, asking questions as if you're not part of the project. So I'm going to ask you, how has it been for you who is from the north? Because I mean, this is a very national project. If you ask, I'm Igbo, Peju is Yoruba, German is Yoruba, Karim is Hausa. So how has it been for you from the north, and a Muslim, getting this very enviable job of, drawing the Yoruba
gods? Okay, a very quick origin story. We have very little time, so I have to make it super fast. When I was growing up, my big sister had a book about Yoruba Orishas, and I would read about them. I think it was from Brazil. Yeah, I would read about them, and interesting. Shango being the god of thunder, and we all as kids read the Marvel comics, Thor and Loki and all that. So it's like, okay, this is our own version of Thor. So when my friends and I were creating our own comic books as kids, I presented Shango as my own, version of Thor, complete with costumes, a cloak, his axe. I mean, I already had, details from my sister's book. I'm sure all my childhood friends thought, wow, he's so inventive, But anyway, so it started from there. Anywhere I would find material about the Orishas, I would, guzzle everything. And, over the years, layers after layers of knowledge and material. So, yeah, I was having coffee Friederike, and she was so excitedly talking about the project. I was like, wow, I think it would really, this completely innocently, I promise, some illustrations maybe for the chapters. And Friederike was looking at me like, okay, keep talking. I was like, da 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 da. And she's like, why can't you do that? I'm like, whoa, me? Okay. Of course, and Toni is there, Peju is there, German is there. They're all really super wonderful friends of mine. So, and I mean, Katharina is now my friend too. So it's the team is actually, this big bunch of friends, that have gelled as people, and then as a creative team, we fight, we argue, we agree, we cheerlead, we everything. It's a real team, and I feel fortunate to be part of this. So, Toni, this question is for you. Why do you think there's this growing appeal, in stories like, traditional stories or stories like that of the Orishas, it's becoming mainstream, really. What do you think is responsible for this growing appeal?
I think that in some way, you can trace it to Black Panther, Wakanda, and that renewed interest in Black heroes and heroism, but also I think that people are kind of dissatisfied with the present, and when you are in that situation, you want to go back to the past to see how glorious, how heroic it was, and people are beginning to discover that they actually had a past, that had some heroes and gods and goddesses who helped restore balance and order. So it's just like you're 20 years old and poor, and discover that you actually come from a royal family. It gives you a renewed sense of pride and identity. So I think in that sense, that's what I think. And young people are more and more beginning to see that there's some kind of cultural pride, to be gained from knowing about where they've come from. So I think that is good for us as writers of this book, because people want to engage, but it's also good for us as Africans in beginning to see that we have a culture that is rich and that is worthy of being celebrated. So yeah.
Thank you, Toni. Now, I'm going to wrap up by saying it's really wonderful talking about this exciting project once again with all of you guys. And I don't know if you noticed, there's a lot of online buzz about the panel and a lot of interest in the book. People asking, oh, how much is the book going to cost in dollars? So I'm already thinking, ching, ching. So there's a lot of interest really in it. It makes me feel good that, you guys who put the project together, your hearts were all in the right places. Yeah. So it's very heartening. So I'm very happy to hear that. And thank you all, and hope to speak to you guys soon, and have a good evening.
If you ever need a new place to go, you can join me in a world of words. Then it seems like I'm nowhere to be found. If you look, you'll find me in a book. Let's take a ride to the past in the back of a phoenix. Let's float around the moon. You'll never be alone, now you know where to look. Find me, find you, find the world in a book. You'll never be alone, now you know where to look. Find me, find you, find the world in a book.
We don't just think of ourselves as a bank. We think of ourselves as corporate citizens with responsibility for growing the economy. Reading and education is a key part of it. But equally important is having access to reading materials at home. A lot of the intervention we've done throughout this COVID is to ensure that people can safely navigate the uncertainties of the COVID crisis and come out of it ready for, to live again.
Let's take a ride to the past in the back of a phoenix. Let's float around the moon.
The dreams that we have are limited by what we have directly interacted with. What reading does is it makes it possible for you to begin to live in worlds that don't yet exist. One read creates a discipline of reading. One read puts me on a timeline. It gives me an important book and I have an opportunity to read it and to collaborate. It's almost like having someone who does your book selection for you. If you have editors and people who are really good at this saying to you, this is the book for the month, I value that. I want to be able to read in a community. I want reading to be a collaborative thing. I want reading to be a communing, and One Read allows me to do that. I will use One Read any day, anytime.
Sticky, spicy, sweet.
And don't touch me. I will get you arrested.
Very, very easy. Relax, everybody.
He shot you.
That 5 minutes madness only you can understand. Visit myspectre.com to get your Spectre experience. Spectre, loans in 5 minutes.
Don't ruin your special moment. Shop now. Altmore.